nerfs to oozing, infested, and weaving potions, but also new advancements and paintings. Hello there, Ray here. Let's take a look at the goods and the bads of everything new. Leave a like and check that you're still subscribed. We got the very first pre-release for 1.20.5. Before we get version 1.21, they're going to finish the version of 1.20.5, which is mostly focused on technical changes, but they've been also coming out with some features as well. So the 1.20.5 features include stuff like the new dog types, dog armor, the armadillos, and all those smaller technical changes that we've been seeing throughout the snapshots. Now when it comes to the stuff that's going to wait all the way until 1.21, that's going to be stuff all related to the trial chambers here, so everything you can see, as well as like the crafter. So even though we are in the 1.20.5 pre-releases, these versions still can have the new stuff, but you can only see it if you have the experimental features turned on. Let's talk about the changes to 1.21, as that's the most interesting ones. First up, when it comes to the special type of spawners, which are the ominous trial spawners, mobs from these can now spawn in with enchanted armor. Armor can be enchanted even with protection 4, projectile protection 4, or fire protection 4, so some pretty high enchantments. You can see this guy here has a diamond helmet. Of course, they can also have trims on them. They can also have enchanted weapons, which can have enchantments like sharpness, knockback 1, power 1, as well as punch 1. But don't think you could try to actually get these diamond gear from them, because they now made it so that there's no chance of them actually dropping it. The whole reason why they have enchantments and better gear and better weapons is just to make the fight harder for people. As this is the more challenging version, you can do like a normal trial spawner, but this is the ominous version, which is supposed to be much more difficult. Now this is also the same one that will produce projectiles, and then the projectiles will fall onto you and damage you. Now these projectiles will now 50% of the time choose to spawn directly above the player, and other times they'll just spawn throughout the room. And they'll also spawn more accurately above the player as well, so you can end up taking more damage while you're trying to already fight off all these mobs. And when defeating one of these more challenging trials and using the key on a vault, you can get a new advancement, which is called Revolting, unlocking a ominous vault with a ominous trial key. It is all part of the trial chamber tree here on the advancements. Now the new potions also got some buffs and nerfs. When it comes to the weaving one, this one will now have a higher chance of producing webs around the mob that has the effect when it dies. So consistently put in around 2 to 3 webs each time. And another effect of this potion is that it can let entities move through webs faster, but they change it so that now players can move through the webs 50% of the normal speed, when before it was slower, being only 25% of your normal speed. So this could be useful like in a PvP battle if you're trying to escape your foe that has placed down some webs on you. Of course, this is also nice in structures like mine shafts, which have webs that naturally generate them. Or you can use this in mini games where players normally have to go really slow through them. Then you could give the player a potion to make them go faster. But how is this going to affect my web farm? This is where the player would AFK, and then we would give them a potion of weaving, and then we would kill them, and then they would produce webs in a 7x7 area. But it looks like all of a sudden now they're only producing webs in a small 3x3 area. Now they didn't talk about this nerf to web, so this could be unintentional, but if this is kept this way, we're definitely going to have to redesign this farm, and it won't be as efficient as it was before. I'll put the link to this cool farm of mine down in the description. Mobs with weaving can now also produce webs and replace certain blocks like snow blocks, fires, and grass blocks. That way if you're happy to fight somebody out in a snowy tundra like here, you don't have to worry about the cobwebs not working. Speaking of not worrying, you don't have to worry about cobwebs being placed and griefing places like your spawn if you have set your mob griefing rule to false, as now this cobweb placing effect will also respect it. Now the next potion, being the infested one, got a buff when it comes to the chance of the mob actually producing a silverfish when it gets damaged. Before it was only a 5% chance, now it is increased to a 10% chance, so pretty much every 10 hits. And when it does spawn a silverfish, it can spawn in 1 or 2. But there was a supposed nerf when it came to this effect, in that when you would hit them with like a snowball, which doesn't actually reduce their health, but it does hit them, they said they changed it so that it wouldn't produce silverfish anymore. But you can see that it does still produce silverfish. I don't know if it just wasn't implemented or if they just decided to leave it that way. But if they do change it, this would affect this slime farm of mine, where I have a bunch of snow golems just pounding at some hostile mobs. and you can see that we're getting silverfish from it. And then what makes it a slime farm is that we hit him with the oozing potion, and then we kill him on these campfires down here, which would produce a lot of slime. But they did also change how silverfish will spawn from mobs when they are produced. Before, when it came to the lays, the silverfish were being produced slightly near the head of the lay, so they could actually get popped out the top and I could easily sort them away from the actual lay mobs. But now you can see that they're spawning directly inside them. This is because they change where the silverfish will spawn. They'll now spawn in the center of the entity's bounding box, and they'll be flinged in the direction of the entity is facing. So notice this zombie here facing me. So when the silverfish come out of the zombie, they come out kind of towards me. But it does mean I have to change the way I sort the silverfish away from like the lays, and even when it comes to other things like the witches and our zombies over here. But the zombies actually wasn't too hard because I just came in here and placed it on a carpet. So even if the silverfish get like thrown towards one of these guys out here, they can't actually leave because they spawn down here and not up in the top. Which brings us to our next nerf. They went ahead and actually nerfed the oozing potion, which you probably notice if you happen to look this direction. Look at all the slimes going blasting out of here. They're getting some insane momentum. They're way over there. So the first nerf, it comes to how many slimes can actually spawn in. Notice there's a lot less slimes if you've seen my video on my different types of slime farms than it was in the previous snapshot. Now before, every enderman that died would produce 2 medium slimes, and each of those medium slimes can produce 1 to 4 tiny ones. You can see we're definitely not getting that many as we have close to 70 endermen in here, meaning that we should see around close to 420 tiny slimes. But they changed it so that only produce the number of slimes equal to the max cramming limit. Now by default this is only 25, so you're only going to get 25 medium slimes, no matter how many entities you have in here. Because of this, there's really no reason to have more than 12 endermen in here, because 12 of them will produce 24 slimes, and any higher than that is the default max cramming. But this value can be changed if you have access to it. You could make it higher. So on servers, if you're afraid that even 25 is too much, you can always make it lower as well. But this also does fix the problem where we don't have the slimes immediately spawn in and then takes max cramming and then split into a bunch of little ones. Now they all spawn as medium-sized ones, and then they immediately will then have to be killed, which I'm using some campfires, and this farm is actually extremely productive as it was producing over 60,000 slime per hour. But now with this nerf here, we're going to have to come in and just have smaller batches of endermen, but then hit them with the potions more often. So it could potentially not change the rates, but it could potentially just cost you more potions. But I might try to splash several groups all with a single potion and then have those groups drop at slightly different times. This way you get the same amount of items per hour as well as use the same amount of potions, but it's just going to be a little bit more redstone. Now the reason why they nerfed the oozing potion was to reduce the amount of entities that were being spawned in all at once. This could create a lot of lag on servers, so by having it related to the max cramming, it can actually be adjusted by servers. Now the wind charge potion did not get any changes, but what do you think of the 3 nerfs that came to the other potions? Do you think they were really needed? I know some people thought the potions were too overpowered, and if so, do you think these changes made them more balanced? Let me know. Now even though the wind charge effect didn't get nerfed, the wind burst enchantment, which you could put onto the mace, did. It will only now do its effect when the player is actually falling through the air. So you can't get the effect just by hitting it or even jumping and hitting. And you can no longer just keep spamming the mace to continually get the wind burst. So now every time you attack, the mace is on cooldown, it won't activate again. And you can see this by the mace going down and then recovering by coming back up. And the wind burst no longer works on boats or minecarts. As before, it could send the player much higher than normal when hitting those compared to most mobs. And you no longer have to worry about getting pushed around by the burst effect if you're flying in creative, as that's no longer considered you falling, so it doesn't even activate. Now when it comes to actually getting the wind burst, you're supposed to get it here at the trial chambers. So they removed it from other areas like getting them from trading villagers, or fishing them up, or from looting other structure chests, or getting them from enchanting tables. And you no longer get the wind burst effect when hitting wind charges, which could constantly send you upwards in survival. Now if you gave yourself a creative mode mace that had higher wind burst than level 3, whenever you use it, it would crash the game. This was actually found by one of my stream moderators, SuperNate, and his bug report got the problem fixed. So if you guys do see any problematic bugs, you can just make bug reports and they might get actually fixed in the next version. Now wind charges also got some changes, such as you weren't able to actually redirect them if you were too weak and you couldn't do any damage to the wind charge, but now you can actually move them. This also applies to gas fireballs. And actually everything that can be redirected by the player now has a new tag, so with commands you can make it so that you can redirect pretty much anything. Now wind charges will act like other projectiles when it comes to stuff like the Wither, who's less than 50% health, so he has like a shield, so like arrows and other projectiles can't actually damage him. Same thing will apply to wind charges, and also when the dragon is perching you can't use arrows on it, so wind charges won't work there either. Breezes will once again be able to attack you when sitting inside of a minecart or a boat. They also finally fixed a bug when it came to using wind charges in worlds that had non-experimental stuff turned on. I accidentally did this in my world here, but it seems it still affects old worlds as my world crashed, but maybe it doesn't affect new worlds. Now I could fix that world just by moving the experimental data pack into it. Now before, when falling and hitting a mob and then coming down and hitting a next one, you could end up doing more damage to the second one because you fell further than the first one. But now, as soon as you hit one of them, it's going to reset your fall distance. And then when you hit the second one, it's just going to calculate it from when you hit your last mob to when you hit this one. You can still try to pull off an epic one-hit kill on all the bosses, like I did on my popular TikTok video that reached over 1 million views, but you're just going to have to space them out correctly so that when you reset and come down to hit the next one, you can actually do enough damage. Which shouldn't be as hard because you can now put enchantments on this to make it even stronger. One thing you can't do is just do a bunch of spam hits. That's because only one of them is going to be applied, and you won't have a whole bunch of these all piling up. But it does make it easier to hit your targets, as it can be really tricky to time it perfectly. Maces got added so they can now actually break pots, when before it was similar to you trying to break them as if you're breaking with any other thing. They also came in with a new type of trap, which are these dispensers that can be found throughout these chambers. Since they're up higher, now they can definitely drop down the potions into a larger area. So keep an eye out for all these traps. There's even some that are behind walls. Not sure if this is intended or not. Over here we even have a trial spawner which is connected to an observer, so as soon as you get near it, it's going to activate some TNT and blow up this entire wall. So let's see what this looks like. Oh, you can hear the TNT. Pretty cool way to kind of expose the spawner. This one here looks pretty crazy with the face of like a bog here in the wall. This room also has a lot of traps in the floor, so you can end up falling down here, or you can even try to hide down here, but the breeze could just open up these trap doors again. They also came in renamed the chamber number 6 to call it Assembly. The structures overall will also generate better when it comes to how they interact with the rest of the world. Here you can see the amethyst didn't come in and destroy the structure. They'll also be more consistently covered up by the rest of natural generation and terrain. But it seems you can still come across them naturally while you are caving, and this natural cave here actually leads directly to a door which lets you inside. Now when it comes to the 1.20.5 new features, they finally came out with a new advancement, which is when you come and tame every single variation of the different types of wolves. This was a big request by everybody, just like when it comes to taming different types of cats. You can also tame all the different types of wolves in order to get the whole pack. Tame one of each variant. There's also a special advancement for getting your very first scute by using a brush on an armadillo, and it's called Isn't It Scute, which is a play on words Isn't It Cute. And there's another advancement for healing some dog armor, which is called Good as New. And this is done by using the armadillo scute. Also, if you use shears to remove the dog armor from the dog, you can get Snippet, which is probably a reference to getting your dogs neutered. So when the full release for the Java Edition 1.20.5 comes out, you'll get these new advancements related to the armadillos and the dog armor. And since we are in pre-releases, that means that we could get these updates more than just once a week until they come out with the full release. So it'll probably be less than a month before we actually get this new full release, where the 1.21 version isn't going to come to probably around June. Now there was a problem that you could just shift click an entire stack of bottles into a brewing stand, or even shift click them into these other slots. But while also fixing that, they also came across a trick I discovered where you could actually space out water bottles and then shift click them into the first slot. And if you kept doing this, you can actually get not only a whole stack of water bottles, you can actually get stacks going up into the millions of items in a single stack. Not because you can't do this overstack trick anymore. You definitely want to take advantage of this, as it's going to be a rare item. After this snapshot, you can learn more about it in these videos here, which I'll link below. When it came to trading with old villagers, all of a sudden they weren't giving any emeralds, which just came up during the snapshot but is now fixed. Written books which had over 100 pages would just have all their other pages get cut off. But now the problem is that these books themselves can't even be opened up, and if you would put them into a lectern, there is no pages whatsoever. So it's like all the pages got deleted now, so hopefully that gets fixed. Now most of these bug fixes were problems that just came up during the snapshot, including a whole bunch of different fixes related to commands, some visuals, and other spelling. And the data pack got updated to incorporate all these different changes, including renaming things internally. There's also new paintings coming to Java Minecraft. They're already in the Bedrock edition. There's this one with 2 villagers, a pot, a cake, and a flower, the simple poppy. We also got player on a horse, the original background of Minecraft pack PNG. All of them are a bit like pastel looking. What do you think of these new paintings? Also, you can follow me over at Twitter at RaysWorks so you can see the behind the scenes of what I'm up to. Now come watch me design new farms after these nerfs. Link to it in my description, or you can check out this playlist all about simple farms machines great for your world. Now I'll see you all over at my live stream. Bye bye!